What's going on, everyone? Welcome on into the Cleveland Browns Report. Matthew Peterson here, breaking down this Week 16 matchup between the Browns and the Texans on Christmas Eve from Houston. So we're going to run through some injury news, some stats, highlights, and then I'm going to give you guys my score prediction at the end of the show. But let's start off with the latest injury news here. So Joe Flacco was limited yesterday, and I guess a little bit today with a calf injury. The Browns had a walkthrough practice on Wednesday, so there wasn't much of a practice to be limited in, but a calf injury has popped up here, although Alex Van Pelt, the offensive coordinator, told the media today that while Flacco did tweak his calf, he does not expect it to be an issue for the Texans game. I watched some footage of Flacco throwing the ball around to the open media portion of Thursday's practice. He looked pretty good to me, so I would not lose sleep over Flacco in this calf injury. As for C.J. Stroud and the Texans, it does not appear Stroud will be available on Sunday for Houston. He is still in concussion protocol, so he has missed the first 2 days of practice this week, putting him not on a good track to play Sunday. So do not expect to see C.J. Stroud for Houston this Sunday, but expect to see former Browns quarterback Case Keenum. Remember, he played 2 years in Cleveland. He even made 2 starts for the Browns, that Thursday night game against Denver in 2021, and then Week 16, or I guess not Week 16, Week 17, Week 18, final week of the season against the Cincinnati Bengals at home. Now, other notable names on the injury report for the Browns. Joel Bitonio is still dealing with a knee, but mostly a back injury. Lower back is the specific area. He says he feels a lot better this week. He has not been ruled out for Sunday, but if Bitonio cannot go, that'll be the second game he misses this year, which he came into this season not missing pretty much any game since his rookie year. And Michael Dunn will be the starting left guard. Anthony Walker still dealing with a lingering knee injury. I think Anthony Walker will be available on Sunday. And then Juan Thornhill, who has missed the last 2 weeks and last 3 out of the last 4 games with a calf injury. He is still battling through that. If Thornhill can't go, we'll see the tandem UDFA starting duo of DeAnthony Bell and Ronnie Hickman. So with all that being said, let's get into some of the stats for these two teams here. So the Browns offense coming into this week averaging over 22 points per game. Third down percentage-wise, definitely room for improvement, converting 31% of the time. Red zones in the top half of the league, though, at nearly 54%. But the turnovers, they continue to not plague this team because they lead the NFL in turnovers and they have 9 wins. But if they could just reduce the amount of turnovers, they would definitely make life a lot easier for themselves. Now, as for the Browns' defense going up against this Texans offense, of course, the Texans offense is not the same without C.J. Stroud, but on the year, averaging just under 22 points per game. We'll talk about the difference between the Browns' home defense and road defense later on. But one of the most frustrating things, I would say, for Jim Schwartz's company is that their red zone defense bottom 10 in the league, allowing touchdowns nearly 70% of the time. So that is definitely an area for improvement going into the final 3 games of the year and potentially the playoffs for the Browns. But who you got? Browns or Texans? I'm leaning towards the Brownies. I got the Browns in this one, but I'll give you my score prediction at the end of the show. But I want to know who you got in this game down below. Now, with all that being said, let's get into my 5 keys to victory for Kevin Stefanski. Key number 1, defensive mentality. This is something that Jim Schwartz said to the media today when asked about, hey, the defense is awesome at home by the lake, but the moment they got to go on the road, it's a Jekyll and Hyde situation here. And they're not wrong. Like, the numbers speak for themselves. The Browns defense at home this year, giving up 12 points per game, the takeaways, the sacks, all that's great. But when they get on the road, I mean, these are some indoor cats, it looks like, because they have not played very well far from Cleveland. 26.5 points allowed. Passing yards way up. In fewer games, by the way. Takeaways down. Sacks way down. So the Browns defense at home versus on the road, night and day difference. And when asked about it, Jim Schwartz said, we have to have an us against the world mentality. And that's got to start right now, right? I think there is a level of, hey, we're the shit. We're the Browns defense. This is our year, 2023. We got this. And then they go on the road. They don't have the dog pound with them. And as Greg Newsome or Denzel Ward put it today, we just get off to slow starts, is what he said, right? And so for the Browns defense, it is about limiting the big plays early on. I mean, I go back to that Colts game. I know that was a while ago. But remember, Jerome Ford, super long touchdown run right off the bat. Vibes are high. And how does Indianapolis respond? A super long touchdown pass of their own to Josh Downs. Sloppy tackling, right? You just got to put yourself in a good position early in the game to build off that momentum and not feel like I just gave up a huge play. I got to make the next big play here. And all of a sudden you're trying to do too much and you're giving up more big plays as a result. We're going to talk about my other keys to victory in just a moment. But this bustling holiday season, you might be looking for nutritious, flavorful meals to keep you fueled up on jam-packed days. Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal delivery service, can help you eat well for breakfast, lunch, and dinner with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved, ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. You'll save time and stay on track with your healthy lifestyle while tackling all your holiday to-dos. This December, get Factor and enjoy eating well without the hassle. Simply choose your meals and enjoy fresh, flavor-packed meals delivered to your door. Ready in just 2 minutes, no prep, no mess. Head to factormeals.com/BrownsChat50 and use code BrownsChat50 to get 50% off. That's code BrownsChat50 at factormeals.com/BrownsChat50 to get 50% off. That link is in the comments and description of today's video. Second key to victory, the ground game has to be better. And the Browns have won despite a very bad ground game, but I am starting to get worrisome that might catch up to them. I mean, you look at the Browns ground game after the bye week up until week 10, and then from week 11 to week 15, sure, the carries are down, but that's because everything is down. They're averaging less than a whole yard with every carry in the last 5-6 weeks. I mean, the best game of that week 11 to week 15 stretch was the Browns' 107 yards against Denver, who, by the way, had the worst ground defense in football at the time. And I think they might even still do. So ever since then, it's been getting worse and worse and worse. And when it comes to the Browns winning despite a bad ground game the last 2 weeks, listen, that's great, but that's not sustainable. If you average less than 90 yards a game for the rest of the season, you are going to run into problems. Joe Flacco has been elite. He has been awesome this season for the Browns, but let's not push our luck with Flacco. I'm not saying that the Browns have been lucky with Joe Flacco, but I think we can all agree that Flacco has been way better than we all envisioned. And I think if you ask Joe Flacco to go out there and throw the ball 50 times every single game for the rest of the season because the Browns are averaging 3 yards a carry on the ground, you might run into problems when teams go, oh, they're going to ask Joe Flacco to throw it 50 times. Well, if we start making life difficult on number 15 and they don't have a ground game to lean on, they will not become just one-dimensional. They'll become zero-dimensional. They need to get more out of the ground game. Credit to Kevin Stefanski for finding ways to win games the last couple of weeks despite having a lackluster ground performance, but that's not something you can do every single week. It is up to this coaching staff, but more importantly, it's up to the offensive line and their running backs. This one just kind of comes down to execution. This is not about scheming guys open or anything like that. The offensive line has to be better when they come to run blocking, and the running backs have to be better when it comes to identifying the holes and then bursting through them. Third key to victory for the Brownies, we get that quarterback-wide receiver chemistry growth. I mean, this is something that comes with time, and so for the Browns to even be on their fourth starting quarterback this year and getting really good quarterback play is something we did not envision, but we need to see better quarterback play from the Joe Flacco to Cedric Tillman duo here. I want to break down the film of Joe Flacco's first interception against the Bears on Sunday. So this one looks to be maybe in the moment a bad throw by Flacco. It goes right to the DB, right to the safety, Eddie Jackson. But later on, I was watching Kevin Stefanski mic'd up on the sideline, and he went up to Tillman after the play. He's like, "What are you doing?" So it got me thinking, all right, well, let's rewatch this here. And then AVP spoke to the media and said, yeah, that one's on Tillman. The first two of the three interceptions were sort of just not the same page between the quarterback and the wide receiver. But let's get the vantage point of Joe Flacco here. So Flacco throws this, and you can see that Tillman, he's not in the same even zip code of where this ball is supposed to be or where he is supposed to be, because Tillman's running like a go route here, right? He's going deep. Where if we go back to the last shot here for a second, I'm sorry, Jack, you guys can see that what Flacco expects Tillman to do is he's supposed to run inside of the middle of the field, right? Run towards the hash marks, not away from them. And so that results in a really easy interception for Eddie Jackson, because instead of running in towards the middle of the field, Tillman keeps running deep, and then that ball just goes nowhere near Tillman and right to the safety. So this is where it comes down to that improved quarterback and wide receiver chemistry, which unfortunately it only comes with time, and there are probably still going to be some more growing pains, but hopefully those growing pains result in just incomplete passes, not an easy interception that's returned to the 1 yard line and punched in a few plays later for 6. Fourth key to victory now for the Browns, another Dalvin Tomlinson takeover game. If you think about a couple of the big victories for the Browns this season, it's no surprise that Dalvin Tomlinson has dominated in those games. Like Week 15 against the Bears, 6 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, a PFF overall grade of 91.6. The Browns' defensive line is missing Okoronkwo, but they are getting some great play out of the interior, which is helping out those edge rushers. But the run defense against the Bears, sure, it might look okay to average on paper, but let's not forget that there were some crucial plays later in that game where the Browns' run defense were dropping the Bears for losses on 4 or 5 yards, and that was flipping the field, and that was getting the ball back for Cleveland in the offense to go down the field and tie the game and then eventually take the lead. So the Week 15 PFF run defensive grades, they speak for themselves. Myles Garrett, once again, phenomenal in both the pass and the run, and you're seeing some great play out of the interior of that defensive line as they get ready for, I would say, a pretty solid, maybe even average offensive ground game from the Houston Texans. Dameon Pierce has been a fantasy football bust this year. He has stunk it up. But Devin Singletary, the last couple of weeks, he has really turned it on. So I wouldn't even call this a 1-2 punch. But again, with the Texans not having C.J. Stroud, you got to envision their game plan this week is we're going to pound the rock, right? We're going to make life a little bit easier on Case Keenum. We're going to try and establish the run. We're going to go back to the basics here. And if the Browns were able to squash the ground game, call me crazy, I would much rather have the Texans lean towards Case Keenum carving up the Browns' DBs versus Devin Singletary running all over the Browns for 125 yards. So if the Browns can squash the ground game and force Case Keenum to beat them through the air, I like Cleveland's chances. Final key to victory for Stefanski, avoid a shootout. The Houston Texans this year have been, way better than I think any of us ever expected. But the Texans, when they score 30 or more points, they are 4-0. So they thrive for the high-scoring type of games. However, if you muddy it up a little bit and make it a defensive slugfest, well, when they don't get to 20 points, they are 1-4. So clearly, they struggle in those defensive affairs, low-scoring battles when it comes down to it. But the Browns' DBs this year, they have been the best cornerback room in the NFL, in my opinion. Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome, Martin Emerson, all playing at Pro Bowl levels for different stretches this year. But Denzel Ward, they're happy to have him back. But Greg Newsome, Martin Emerson, they have done a phenomenal job, not just taking over and filling in at times for Denzel Ward, but just on their own rights by themselves when the Warden hasn't been out there. But again, if you force Case Keenum to beat you through the air, it's not going to be easy for Houston with all three of these guys healthy. Which brings me to my next point here. When all three of those guys are healthy, look at the difference, right? The Broncos, the Rams, and the Jags game, no Denzel Ward. And what happens? The Browns give up at least 27 points in all three of those games. Versus Denzel Ward returns. They have all three corners healthy, and the Bears throw for 148 yards. The defense only gives up 10 points. They had a pick six from the Chicago Bears, fueling nearly half of their scoring. And then as for passing or just overall first downs, 12 first downs for the Chicago Bears compared to 17, 20, and 20 in the previous 3 weeks. So grade the Browns cornerback room, A, B, C, D, or F. What letter grade would you give the Browns cornerback room? Even Cam Mitchell, the rookie out of Northwestern, he made that really important shoestring tackle on Justin Fields on 4th down to get the Browns the ball back in the 4th quarter. So top to bottom, this Browns cornerback room has been magnificent. I would give them an A grade. My score prediction, though, I told you guys at the beginning of the show I was going to give it to you at the end. I got the Browns winning this one, 24-20. Make sure to follow me over on Twitter or X, whatever it's called, at Matthew Petey. I'll keep you guys in the loop on all things Browns, and I'll see you all later.